Welcome to this ownership review of what it's like to own the 2026 Ram Tungsten Edition truck after 90 days. Influencer reviews that I watched prior to buying this truck talked about it being the Rolls-Royce of trucks, and this one's finished in the beautiful forged blue metallic paint. Now, I know what you're thinking. The blue doesn't really show up very well here. The metallic's not really coming out. Some of you might even be thinking this doesn't even look like a Ram Tungsten Edition truck. All I can assure you is I'm making a payment on a 2026 Ram Tungsten Edition truck, but I've spent more time over the past 90 days driving stuff like this than the actual truck. Let's talk about it. So I bought this truck on May 9th from Ray's Chrysler Jeep Ram in Fox Lake. They had sold it as new. They were now selling it as a certified used vehicle with 400 miles on it. So in my eyes, this is basically a new truck. Drove it home, again, 2 hours away. Drove it Sunday, Monday, no issues. Tuesday, I went out, drove it to work. I live 6 miles from the office, so I'm not very far away. Came out after work, truck is dead. I am able to find a booster pack and jump the truck and get it running and check engine lights, idiot lights, all these different things just lit up all across the dash. But the truck seemed to drive, and like I said, I live fairly close to the office, so I just drove it home. Parked it in the garage, shut it off, tried to restart it. It didn't restart. Not shocking with the short drive. It wasn't going to charge on the alternator. Went in the house, ate dinner with the wife, done some Google searches, and figured out that one of the known issues with 2026 Rams is they come from the factory with fuses that aren't fully seated in the fuse box. So I went out after dinner and checked both fuse boxes, and 30-40% of the fuses were loose or not seated properly. Pushed them all in, restarted the truck. It actually started without a jump pack at that point. So I thought, great manufacturing, but hey, it's working, who cares? There was a few sensors that were still clearly showing an alarm that I attributed to a module not power cycling properly, so I left it sit overnight. Next morning, those modules had reset clearly, and there was no alarms on the truck. So Wednesday, drive it to work. Again, no issues. Drive it home, no issues. Pull in the garage, park it, eat dinner, go out after dinner, truck is dead again. At this point, take it to my local Ram Jeep dealer for service, and it's their baby at that point. So this is Wednesday, May 14th, that I dropped the vehicle off at the local Ram dealer. The service agent calls me the next morning, states that they're going to start working on it, looking into it. They start working on it. 2 weeks go by. They haven't made a lot of progress. All they've told me is that a Ram engineer has flown in and looked at the vehicle, and they are thinking that it might be some sort of a software related issue that will take some time till July possibly to fix. I'm obviously not excited about that, given this is a nearly new vehicle that's Ram certified, and how could this be happening? The agent understood my frustration, gave me a 800 number for tech support from Ram, basically, with a ticket number that I could use as a reference to my specific vehicle, and said that I could call it and make an attempt to escalate it within Ram to see if they could put some higher priority on it. But he had also stated that this wasn't the only truck in the country that was doing this. So it seemed to be something they knew they had an issue with that they just couldn't figure out. When I did get home, I did try calling Ram tech support because I thought, can't hurt anything, but quickly realized that that was pointless. This person was obviously reading off of a cue card or script, and there was nothing of value there. So it is what it is, just kind of moved on. A few more weeks go by, and get a call from the dealership that the truck is fixed. This is now June 17th. It's been in the dealership for 34 days. I was just excited for it to be over with at that point. I was told the issue was there was a power module that was known to be a problem from the factory They thought that Ray's had potentially changed the power module but not put the right model number back into it. I don't know, because again, Ray's didn't tell me there was anything wrong with the truck. They had me in a rental vehicle from Enterprise Rent a Car that was this Ram Classic that wasn't in the best of shape. So I was just happy for it to be over with. And everyone that I had talked to that had a 1 year old Ram or so had kind of said that they all had some sort of a power event that took some time to get fixed. And the first time it got fixed, then it was just kind of over with. So at this point, I figured I had my issue and this was a done deal. I drove the truck from the 17th to the 27th with no issues. Parked it on the 27th only because I was going to be riding a motorcycle for the week. So the truck sat for 2, 3 days. On the 30th of June, went out to restart the truck and it was dead. And very dead. As far as a jump pack wouldn't work, I had to put it on a battery charger. It took 45 minutes to get the thing fixed, to the point where it would charge to the point where it would actually start. Got it started, took it over to the local Ram dealer, dumped it off. They called me the next day to say, yep, there's clearly something still wrong with this truck. They were going to reopen the ticket with Ram and see what would come of this. The first service reported on this truck via Carfax was around the second week of January. Shows a power control module was reprogrammed or flashed from the dealer. I believe this is what my local dealer was referencing when they said it had the wrong module in it, but it's unknown if in January if this module replacement was known. I don't want to speculate on that. The vehicle was sold on January 24th of 2026 with 19 miles on the odometer. The next service ticket is showing up on January 27th, vehicle with 22 miles on it, with a power electrical issue noted as the issue. I couldn't find a service ticket for this incident. The next service was on March 6th of 2026. The truck had 54 miles. It was towed in with dead batteries. Again, very low miles. Truck clearly has a drawdown issue, power consumption issue that has not been solved yet. The next service was about a month after, April 9th. The truck had 209 miles on it. Same type of issue. Service reports show that it was battery drained down, wouldn't start. Same old, same old. The last service in this patch was on April 30th. Something's going on weird here, which I'll get into in a bit. But again, it was another power issue. The service report showed that the owner took the truck, brought it back, didn't start, just oddities with power. Carfax shows the vehicle was listed on 421 by Ray's Chrysler Jeep Ram with 360 miles on it for sale. It was then shown as a certified vehicle on 427. What doesn't make sense to me is the truck was for sale on 421, a certified used vehicle on 427, but there's this weird service ticket from 430 saying it was an electrical issue again. It doesn't make sense to me how this vehicle was a certified vehicle. At this point, it doesn't make sense to me how this truck was certified, truthfully, or what Ram certified even means. But that's beside the point. The last Carfax entry prior to my purchase of the vehicle shows that it was serviced on 5/1 of 26. And again, this was body electrical system was checked, computer reprogrammed. Again, I bought this vehicle at Ray's Ram Jeep Chrysler. This is the worst dealership experience I've had. For one, I don't feel they were very transparent on the truck history. I feel that the multiple electrical issues should have been explained or detailed a little bit. Two, they screwed up the paperwork, and I think that led to some other compounding issues. So about a week after the sale, I got something in the mail that they had sent to me with a FedEx return to certify the mileage on the vehicle. I think it was a form they forgot to have me sign when I was in the dealership. And I think this led to a chain of events that led to some other weird items that I've never dealt with before. So and this is my assumption at this point. I don't want to say that this is factual. This is just what I think may have happened after I turned in that form or sent that form back to them later. The loan didn't get paid off for my trade-in quickly. It was well after the 10-day payoff as far as when it was actually processed. And I think what happened is I printed out a 10-day payoff for the dealership on that Saturday. It wasn't paid off until 14, 15 days later was when I finally saw that the check was written. And I think at that point, by the time they actually got it over to BMW Financial, it was getting kind of close to the holiday weekend. So it took a while for this to get processed. Item that kind of came out of that though is I didn't realize the loan wasn't paid off. It wasn't until this July 4th weekend when I was fairly bored. I'd gotten an email from my BMW financial account, services account, stating that payment was due because my payment was due, coming up in a week and a half or so, and that zero balance was due. And I thought, well, that's weird that there shouldn't be a balance on that. That should be closed out. Opened up my BMW financial services account and then saw there was like an $82 balance on it or something to that effect that I didn't realize was there. And it was weird when you logged into the BMW financial services, it was showing payment due to like a weird negative $60,000 number. That was the payoff of the car. And there was just it was weird how it was. You actually had to drill down and actually ask for a payoff amount to get the balance of what was due on the account because it was just weird how the financial website was showing it. So, anyways, paid that off. Here's where there was some weird things going on with this dealership that were frustrating. I got an email from them, or not an email, a card in the mail that my plates were available at their dealership. I texted my salesperson to say, why are my plates at the dealership? Didn't make sense to me because I got notification from the local DMV that the truck was registered that came to my address. It makes no sense to me why the plates went to the dealership. Salesperson responded with, hey, yep, they're here. Sorry, we'll get them in the mail. We'll get them sent up to you. This is in middle of June. I didn't pay that close attention to the plates at that point to be transparent because I didn't have the truck. So it was one of those where I just figured they'd show up when they'd show up. July 1st, I get another card in the mail from Ray's stating my plates are still there. And I text my salesperson again to say, hey, why don't I have my plates yet? And the response I got was, you'll have them in 10 days. And in my head, they're 2 hours away. It's what's going on? Text the salesperson back. If they've been there for, weeks at this point, why is it 10 more days to get the things sent to me? That just doesn't make any sense. No response from my salesperson. It was then over the weekend when I figured out my BMW financial mess and then started to think, okay, what probably makes some sense here is, were they holding the plates as leverage, trying to get me to pay something off? Could they had resold the car, I believe, at that point. Was there an issue with them? I don't know if the lien release ever came on the title. I don't know how any of that start of it works. I just thought it was just really weird how poorly executed something as simple as license plates was on this vehicle. Makes no sense to me. I've tried reaching out to Ray's via their email contact forms and things of that nature because they don't have email addresses on their website, but going through the contact forms to kind of go through some of the issues I've been having, what's going on, never got a response. I tried reaching out to the general manager of the store a couple weeks ago to try to push this forward and try to figure out what's going on with it. What was going on with the truck? Why, frustration with this entire process. Never got a response. I attempted to call him then via the number on their website about a week ago, just before I was getting close to, finally said I was going to do this video. And to his credit, he called me back. We played voice tag for a day, and then he hasn't responded since. So at this point, I've never got a feeling from Ray's that they care or that they want anything to do with this process. The red flags that I missed when I bought this truck, there was no pictures posted on their website. I took that as this truck just came as a trade-in. They would just turn it around, getting it, So in my mind, I went down there because it was the cheapest. It was 85 right around there for this truck. No, I'm sorry, 75, 75, 78, somewhere in that range, which for a 400-mile truck, and the fact that these are 90 new, and no Ram is worth $90,000. Come on. So that's part of why I went down to buy it. But no pictures were on the site for the truck. And when I showed up, the truck was just filthy. Like, that's the dirtiest I've ever seen a vehicle on a car lot. And again, in my head, I'm like, okay, they just got this thing in, just whatever. Again, logically, I should have thought, how is this Ram certified? Blah, blah, blah. But it was just odd. And I guess the only thing I'll take out of this is anytime you're buying a certified used vehicle, get a Carfax. Look at that service history. Don't trust the dealer, especially if it's raised, to tell you what actually that vehicle was in for. Because I would not have bought this truck if I'd have known the gremlins that were in it. I called Ram Corporate using my previously allocated service ticket number from the first time the truck was in for service on July. This was a Thursday, and it was to request that the truck be bought back by Ram. There's just no argument that anyone can make logically that this has not been a defective vehicle from day one. Shouldn't have been sold as a Ram certified vehicle, given the electrical problems that have persisted since and were there prior to the Ram being certified. And that at this point, I just wanted to start the process of what's it going to take for Ram to buy back this defective product. The person on the other line said they understood, said that they were going to escalate this to another level of service ticket, that they would call me back in one business day. And again, this was on July 9th, Thursday, I believe that is. And yeah, Thursday. To their credit, they called me back the next day just like they said they would. We talked about what was happening. I explained to them that there was the now two issues within my 90 days of ownership, and that prior to that there was, 3 to 4 different issues via Carfax and service tickets that clearly show that there's a pattern here, that this vehicle has never been right since it left the factory. And they said that they would review it. They would give me a call back in 24 to 36 hours after everything was reviewed, and just wait for the follow up. At this point, even with all the problems I was having with the truck and the dealership experience from buying the truck that I felt wasn't the greatest, in my mind, I was thinking that if Ram came back and the 24 to 36-hour review and offered up to give me a credit for the price paid for the truck, and I'd get an assurance that the later model, version of this truck wouldn't have the same gremlins to it. Like, I understand you have a bad batch run or something in electronics, and it just is what it is. So does a truck manufactured after March 1st, for example, just not have these issues? That if Ram was going to offer a credit back in the value amount of what I paid for the truck, this is when they had started to come out with these 10, 15% off MSRP deals where I could have taken the credit and just bought a new one that was, within $1,000 or $2 or whatever I had spent in the first place. And I was going to be willing to go for that. The truck is a really nice looking truck. It rides amazing. Props to the engineering on the inline six dual turbo and the transmission, the tuning, everything is it's spectacular. It really is a smooth driving, accelerating, linear. The interior is really, really nice in the vehicle. There's a lot to like about this truck when it starts. But with the electrical gremlins, that's what spurred all of this. If this truck was working good from day one, I frankly wouldn't have posted a 9-day review because I'm not a YouTuber. I would have just been enjoying the truck and not caring. So this is where we're at on July 10th. 24 to 36 hours, I'm supposed to get a response. Friday, July 17th, after a week without a callback, I called into the support number, asked for an update on my new case number, because when you called in, it automatically defaulted to your previous case. Told that that person was on another call. They'd call me back afterwards. Monday, July 20th, I called them again. Same process. They said that they would call me back within 1 business day. Wednesday, July 22nd, no response. Called again. Line about the agent was on the other line. They'd call me back shortly. Friday, July 24th, called again. If you say you're going to call in 1 business day, I just expect you're going to call back. And if you don't, I know you're not, right? So, and at this point, starting to get a little agitated with Ram Corporate. I don't need them to tell me what their decision is. I know it. I'm not an idiot. But there was no attempt to communicate with me at that point from Ram Corporate. A week after July 24th now, the following Friday, I came home and was again frustrated. I talked to my local dealer, got this standard update of we don't know when this is going to get fixed. Dealing with Ram, they've given them a list of things, and it's nuts to me how long this is taking. So after a week of no further response, I came home and I started searching for a different support number to call versus the one I was calling. I found one that was a different, more of a corporate type phone number that I was able to call, and I was able to give my case number. And that tech had advised me that the case had been closed. It had been denied because the vehicle had not hit the lemon law requirements of my state, so Ram wouldn't consider it as it was being fixed under warranty. Said I could take it up with an independent auditor. When I went through the vehicle history with this agent, kind of met with indifference, and again, it's being fixed under warranty. At that point, realized that Ram doesn't care. You're a commodity. Just take it, right? So since May 9th, this truck has not started 3 times, ran without any issues for about 2 weeks. First trip to the shop was 34 days long. Second trip is now 39 days long and counting. No sane person can look at the service history of this truck and tell me with a straight face that it hasn't been right electronically from day one. Stellantis Ram looked at my situation, decided that my case was not significant to warrant any further action. Yeah. The joke. So this is my 2026 Ram 1500 Tungsten Edition in the very beautiful forged blue metallic exterior paint, which it really is sharp. This is its natural habitat, which is a service parking lot of your local Ram dealer. And like I said, this purchase has been a huge mistake. This particular truck is a complete disaster. And like I mentioned earlier in the video, this is not the only truck in the country that is allegedly going through this type of situation. As far as Ray's, I would not recommend anyone shop there based on my experience, and I know I will never try anything with this dealership again. I'm not an influencer. I don't want likes or subscribes. I just wanted to be honest about what this experience has been so you can make smarter choices. The only thing I've learned throughout this process is Ram Corporate does not care about their customers. No one can look at what this history of this truck is and think it's not defective from the start. I'll post a follow-up video to let you know how much I lost when I traded in, if it ever gets fixed.